evening. I now call to order the regular town board meeting for the town of Arundecoit, June 19th, 2018. Visitors are invited to join the board members in rising to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Councilwoman Hush-LaRae.
Here.
Councilman Perdicone.
Here.
Councilwoman Romeo.
Here.
Councilman Weiner. Supervisor Sealy.
Here.
Attorney for the town.
Here.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, board members. Good evening, Arundecoit public. We have a modest agenda tonight. I'll note we have two public hearings, which will start at 7:35 and run subsequent to one another consecutively. If you are here to speak on those public hearings, you may sign up to do so. We also, of course, always have public input on a separate sign-up sheet, which we will get to after our pre-meeting activities, and you're encouraged to sign up for that as well, but not still allowed to speak regardless if you sign up. At the end of the meeting, after we get through our regular business, we have a presentation from our town auditor, Bonadillo, on the town's circular audit, and we'll be joined by Randy Shepard from the Bonadillo Group. First, a few remarks. The past month, I just want to thank the American Legion Post 134, as always, for helping organize and really organizing. We provide them support, but our Memorial Day observances and our this past week, our Flag Day observances, we do it very well in this town. I think we're one of the few towns to have a Flag Day observance, which is ventured into our schools as well, which also celebrate Flag Day as well. So I just wanted to thank the American Legion Post 134, Commander Brown, and all the volunteers for really putting on a fantastic and solemn observance of those holidays. The past few weeks, I had the pleasure of hosting the second graders from Ivan Green Primary School in East Arundecoit here in the Town Hall meeting room. They also went over to visit Officer Nichols at the police department, as well as a quick trip to the library. It's always nice to give our youngsters their first introduction to civics and ask them what their thoughts are about community and government. And it's always interesting to see the feedback I get, but I was really enjoyed having them in here, and kudos to their teacher for preparing them well, and I hope they enjoy their summer, as all school children in Arundecoit do. A reminder, our new speed limit law goes into effect July 1st, which is upcoming. As I'll remind folks, this it lowers the speed limit to 30 miles per hour, predominantly for side streets or town local roads, the roads that most of us live on. The county roads, for the most part, those are the major roads, East Ridge Road, most of St. Paul Boulevard. Those will remain the same, Hudson Avenue. Those will remain at their current speed limit. We also will be lowering the speed limit in our school speed zones by 5 miles per hour. So many of those existing school speed zones, which are currently at 25, will go down to 20 miles per hour during school hours. There's a full overview of the changes on the town's website, which I encourage folks to take a look at. It has a very good map that outlines where those changes will be implemented. And you'll start to see the signs being installed. I'll note it doesn't go into effect July 1st, but our DPW crews are working diligently to get that ready. And so you'll start to see the signage appearing, and we thank residents in advance for their cooperation, and certainly if they have any questions, they can call either Town Hall or the police department. A reminder that our farmers market is, on May 31st, I was happy to join Chief Tantillo, officers from the IPD, and students from East Arundecoit, as well as folks from the Special Olympics for a law enforcement torch run. This included a number of students who are participating athletes in our local Special Olympics. It was a very nice event. I thank the IPD for helping organize it. It offers a good learning experience for our students and really a boost of enthusiasm for the participants in the Special Olympics. Reminder that the farmers market is now up and running every Thursday at 4 p.m. with entertainment starting at 6 p.m. We've had good weather thus far, knock on wood. RTS, Regional Transit Service, is currently in the process of going through a planning study called Reimagine RTS. The plan is exploring changes to RTS fixed route system throughout Monroe County. They have, in the past month, released a draft plan that is posted for review. It includes some changes for the town of Arundecoit, some of which enhance service, some of which reduce service. We're encouraging residents to review the document and participate in a short survey. A link is available on our website or by visiting reimagine.myrts.com. And hopefully we can ensure that the town's needs are met when looking at public transportation options. Movies Under the Stars begins next month. We encourage all residents, this is a free event, bring your blankets, chairs, come spend an evening in a family-friendly environment. We're happy to offer captioning for the first time this year for our deaf, hard of hearing community. The first movie is July 12th, Christmas in July, that is the viewing of the Polar Express. And they will be running in August and September as well. And they are sponsored by the Bateman Orthodontics, and we thank them for that. Our Independence Day celebration is fast approaching. I boast that it's by far the largest and longest in our region, and we're very proud of that. It takes place on July 3rd and 4th. There's community booths and arts and crafts shows beginning at 11 a.m. on both days. The annual street dance, sponsored by the Ukrainian Federal Credit Union and Senator Funky, will be held at 7 p.m. on Titus Avenue. Of course, there's always entertainment both days in our beverage garden. On the 4th of July, the 10K and 2-mile runs begin at 7:45 and 8:15. Respectfully, registration can be found on the town's website. Our parade, the biggest parade in the region, begins at 11 a.m. There's a bike decorating contest at IHS at 10:15 a.m. And after the parade, we'll have our annual reading of the Declaration of Independence and our Red, White, and Chew pie eating contest, which I always look forward to. I'll note every year we're adding more family activities on the West Lawn on the 4th, which grows every year. And this year I think we added a zip line to an already good lineup. I think there's pony rides, temporary tattoo painting, all sorts of good things for the kids. So bring the kids to the West Lawn throughout the day on the 4th. And finally, at last week's workshop review meeting, we honored Mary Heckman with our Staff Spotlight Award. Mary is Chief Tantillo's administrative assistant over at the IPD and works hard on a daily basis to ensure our police department is run efficiently and serves the public. And much of the good police work that you see in the community is she has her imprint on that. So I'd like to congratulate Mary Heckman for winning or being recognized with our Staff Spotlight Award. And with that, I'm going to ask the town board members to join me at the podium for a brief proclamation presentation. Board members? So we're always blessed when citizens take it upon themselves to help the town enhance our quality of life through a number of ways. Often that's through a beautification project, and through the assistance of Councilwoman Romeo, as well as some of our staff, a group of citizens, which started with a phone call, I believe, to Councilwoman Romeo. A group of citizens had a desire to beautify our town through the creation of a butterfly garden at McAvoy Park. And lo and behold, we were able to plan that and implement that on our Invigorate Arundecoit Day. With that, I'm going to yield my time to Councilwoman Romeo because she really deserves the credit for this. I'm going to have her talk about the initiative, have her introduce the folks who participated who are here, and then we'll present a proclamation. So Councilwoman Romeo, I yield the floor to you.
Thank you, Supervisor Seeley. So I'd like to welcome up some of the friends that made this happen. Really, I was just the catalyst. I was the connective tissue. But it started with a phone call from Karen Aletto from the Fish and Game Club, who was prompted to call me by Steve Greavy, one of my cohorts from the Conservation Board. Come on up, guys. And there's some other friends here too. So the conversation was pretty easy. We'd like to do something to help beautify Irondequoit. Where could we best be of use and what could we do? That prompted me to reach out to Bob Kiley and Don Stinton from our own DPW and Parks Department and say, where could this be a useful thing? We did some site work. McAvoy was quickly chosen. Boots on the ground. Few more phone calls, and I don't know, a couple weeks later, we were out there with shovels digging a field that had been prepped by our DPW. So now, when you go down to McAvoy Park, just adjacent to the playground there, you'll see a fabulous butterfly garden. So we planted things that were really tolerant to our local environment, things that are native, things that we hope the deer won't browse too desperately. So far, they seem to be leaving it alone. And most importantly, things that attract the butterflies. So we also did our homework together with these ladies mostly, checking out the migratory path of the monarch butterfly, making sure that we were helping them be protected. We do have a lot of milkweed, butterfly bush, and other things in there. So I'd like to give a round of applause. Are all your friends here? I think not everyone came up.
Just Bill.
Come on up.
Come on up.
Kimmy, you want to reload the
And I'm-
proclamation?
And I'm also gonna, okay, I'm also gonna ask Kristen Greer, who's trying to hide over there, but Krista Greer is also the new chairwoman of the Conservation Board, but she brought the Conservation Board and a lot of help along. So this was really a team of people working together to make this happen. I've never read one of these before. I'll give it a shot, Supervisor. Whereas a great society is only as great as those who perform exemplary service on behalf of their community, whether through unique achievement in professional or other endeavors, or simply through a lifetime of good citizenship. And whereas it is the belief of this town board that such individuals should be recognized for the edification and emulation of others. And whereas the recent creation of a butterfly garden at McAvoy Park in Irondequoit is a wonderful example of the good that can be accomplished when organizations committed to bettering their community come together for a common purpose. And whereas the Irondequoit Fish and Game Club, in conjunction with the Town Conservation Board, Mothers Out Front, and others, came together to plan a gardening project to beautify our community and created this garden during the annual town-wide Invigorate Irondequoit Cleanup Day. And whereas the garden was completed with the help of generous donations from Amon's Farm Market and the Seneca Park Zoo Society, and whereas recognizing that this effort exemplifies the characteristics of volunteerism, selflessness, and dedication to the community that make Irondequoit a special place to live, we wish to formally thank all the volunteers who made this project a success. Now, therefore, let it be known that we, with Supervisor David Seeley and the town board, on behalf of the entire town of Irondequoit, do hereby recognize and thank everyone involved in the creation of the new McAvoy Butterfly Garden in the hopes that future volunteers will be inspired by their commitment to bettering the Irondequoit community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to give credit where it's due, and Kimmy really helped spearhead that and wanted to make sure that we recognized you, and we really do appreciate it. Would anyone like to speak on behalf of this gallant effort, or? We want people to see, to follow your example, so please say a few words.
Well, I'll just say that
Sure.
it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, and working and meeting Kimmy was wonderful, and Steve, thank you very much for helping, and I think Joan and everyone, Bill and everybody involved will concur that it's just been a good partnership. And Kimmy, wonderful selection on the plants. Your expertise was appreciated, and it's showing right now. It looks great already, and it's only been like 5.5, 6 weeks.
Wow. I drive
So-
by it every day, so
Okay.
nice
Thank
work.
you. Thank you very much.
Want to take a quick
Show
picture?
the rain garden out here we did.
Oh.
See how that's come along.
Let's take a picture. That's okay, you can see that a little more. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll now move on to public input. There are three residents signed up to speak for public input. Certainly, if you did not sign up, you are certainly entitled to do so. We generally like to keep it around 3 minutes. I'm not going to cut you off, but just be mindful that there are those speakers, and we have an agenda to get to. But with that, I will call our first speaker, Jeff Goldblatt. Mr. Goldblatt, as always, just say your name and address for the clerk's benefit.
Jeff Goldblatt, 128 Parkside Crescent. I don't know why, but it's always left to me to follow something positive with something sad, but it is kind of important. Recycling is in trouble in this country, and it includes us, for two simple reasons: carelessness and confusion. This has become a global issue with China calling the show. Not everything that you put at the curb goes to China, but a lot of it does, or did until they slammed the door just recently. This started 5 years ago, called Operation Green Fence. It is now known as National Sword. 0.5% contamination is all they allowed, and they are turning stuff away by the boatload. Not only are they getting strict on all of this, but now Vietnam, Malaysia, and another country I just forgot, they can't even handle the overflow. How can the average person help? So I'll do this quickly, and yes, Mr. Supervisor, I brought props, because as we all know, props help. And this is stuff that I found right around here, because it's a local problem too, not just nationally. And I'm keying this off of an article that Erica Bryant wrote for What's Left of the DNC, titled "Plastic Bags Sabotage the Recycling Plant." And I see this even on my way over here. All it does is jam up the equipment. So whether it's store plastic bags, magazine plastic bags, or plastic bags that people get and put in from bottled water, those are collected and processed separately. They don't want to see this stuff at Emerson Street at all, period. That's their rule. Food waste, she mentions. She mentions things like peanut butter. I pulled that off the boulevard. This automatically goes to the landfill. She also mentions salad dressing. I couldn't find that, but I do have tangy marinade that has a bullfighter on it. I don't know what a bullfighter has to do with tangy marinade. Folks at home can do their own joke. I was told to behave myself. Styrofoam. No styrofoam at all. No styrofoam egg cartons, no styrofoam cups, no styrofoam packing material. There's no market for this stuff. This goes in your trash. Those simple things will help, because the county is getting hit with upwards of 3,000 tons worth of stuff that has to go to the landfill annually. By doing our little part with these simple things, that's going to be a big help and set an example for others. I heard the bell, thank you.
Take your time, Jeff.
Oh, and let me also mention two other things. The New York, all those of us who are either in the industry or follow the industry have known that this has been coming. The New York Times finally picked up on this May 29th. Your recycling gets recycled, right? Maybe and maybe not. A lot of tonnage is being landfilled as we speak. Stuff that normally would not be landfilled is either warehoused or put in the ground. So there's no guarantee, and this is all because of the junk that's been going over to China, which they've stopped, and rightfully so. And the other little thing, and someone may ask, well, gee, the haulers take everything, what's the problem? They're not supposed to. And why there hasn't been a crackdown over the last 5 years is beyond me, especially in the case of Waste Management, who I'll call out. Their CEO was on CNBC just a few weeks ago talking about the problems in Los Angeles with the head of the Los Angeles Center. Bullets, apparently I guess when the Bloods and Crips finish shooting it at each other, somebody picks up the spent shells. Baby carriages, and I'm yelling at the TV like an idiot. It's like, why are you guys picking this stuff up? They created a program 5 years ago called Recycle Right, Recycle Often. Why this hasn't been implemented across the country is beyond me. If they did, they and their friendly local and regional competitors would have followed suit and could have minimized what's now a global problem. So that's why these little simple things that I pointed out will help. The companies and the municipalities have to deal with this. Monroe County is aware of this. It's a shame that the prior two administrations didn't think that recycling was terribly important. I can assure you that the current group now is, because we're under a 60% commitment made to bump up recycling to 60% in 6.5 years. We're only at 38%, so we've got a long way to go. So recycle as much as you can, but be careful what and how you put it at the curb. That's my message.
Thank you, Mr. Goldblatt. I'll give you a second to
Pat, go.
put your props back. You can always let us know if you need a table. We're happy to bring a table over too.
Oh, that's okay.
That's a big podium. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Goldblatt. Next up, I believe it's Martin Prince. Mr. Prince of 199 Russell Avenue, correct?
That's correct.
Very good. Hello, good evening.
How you doing? No props, but I'm here to ask for information concerning rental property in Arundecoit. I live in one of the older neighborhoods in East Arundecoit, right by the Ridge Culver area. A lot of the houses there are going for sale, over the last few years, but there's been one or two homeowners that have been buying them, or I should say landlords that have been buying them. And basically what they're doing is they strip the property of all the bushes and flowers and all that stuff, and then they rent them out. And obviously the renters that move in there, there's no weeding going on, there's no trimming of the grass around the fences. They look like the 4-foot tall grass around the fences and all that stuff. When they take away all the bushes in front of the house, it's starting to look like a trailer park around there. It's pretty embarrassing. Talked to a few people in the neighborhood. They want to know what can be done about it. I mean, they got one guy buying up all the people he runs to. I've actually got nothing to say bad about them. They're very nice people. But when trash blows out of a recycling bin and blows across your yard, you naturally go and pick it up. They don't. It's not their trash, not their yard. They don't seem to care. We just want to know what we can do about it. I mean, we want to know what the homeowner rights are. We want to know what the rights or what the responsibilities are to the landlord. I mean, are they responsible to keep 10% weeds, as what one person was saying? I don't know if any of that's true, but there's no place for us to get the information. So
Okay.
I'm just wondering what we can do to.
Can I ask this, either Ms. Ivers or Ms. Kelly from our Department of Development? So I'll just say this. We have adopted a rental registry. We have tightened it up to encourage compliance with it. Our goal is always to know where the rental properties are. Often, we don't know if property is a rental property. It's always good when people, neighbors come and inform us, because often the property owner does not do so voluntarily. So the more information we have, the better. There are requirements that a landlord, if they are renting the property, must follow if it is a rental property. A lot of that relates to fire and structural and security. But certainly we want to make sure that those residents are being kept up in a good manner. So what I'm going to ask is either Ms. Ivers or Ms. Kelly perhaps to sidebar with you and perhaps set up a meeting, and maybe we can figure out some action items to ensure that we're just keeping tabs. And again, I think a lot of rental properties are terrific. I think they're well kept, but some aren't, and we want to make sure we know about them.
Well, like I said, it's the basic. Like I said, you drive down the street. It looks pretty desolate. A lot of the property. I understand why they take them out, because they don't have to maintain them, they don't have to trim them and all this stuff. But it does look like a trailer park, and it's at the holidays there's no lights out. There's it's just pretty drab.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bad neighborhood. So.
Okay. So thank you, though. I
right,
appreciate
thank
you
you.
coming up. Next up, Ginny Nacy, 122 Old North Hill. Old North Hill.
Hi, I am representing Drug Free Arundecoit, Defy Together, and we are a community coalition specifically tasked with the reduction of substance use among youth. A week ago, I had the opportunity to speak in support of T21 legislation with the Monroe County Legislative. Tonight, I am asking for support of the board and residents of Arundecoit to contact our county executive, Cheryl Donalfo, and legislators to support T21. Current research indicates that there are 21 localities currently in New York State that have already implemented a Tobacco 21 policy. About 70% of all New York's population reside in areas covered by T21 ordinances, and 75% of New Yorkers favor raising the age of tobacco to 21, including 7 out of 10 smokers. Evidence shows that Tobacco 21 policies decrease social acceptability, access, use, and initiation of tobacco and e-cigarette products among youth. Decreasing the social acceptability of these products for youth consumption in our county and in our town is beneficial to help counter the expansion and popularity of e-cigarette use among local middle and high schoolers. Look, I speak from personal experience. Many of you already know my story. I have a son I lost he became a heroin statistic, but his first puff of a cigarette at age 12 or 13 is what most likely set him on a trajectory of addiction for the rest of his life. Research also shows this considerable risk to teens. The average age of a new smoker is 13 years old, and e-cigarette use of high schoolers in the U.S. has soared 900% from 2011 to 2015, and is now the most popular tobacco, or shall I say nicotine product, that is used among youth. Repeated doses of nicotine alter and damage a developing youth brain. These changes make youth more susceptible to future addiction. The younger you are when you try nicotine or other addictive chemicals, the more likely you are to become addicted long term. Currently, there are roughly 623 tobacco retailers and 36 vape shops in Monroe County. We have 3 vape shops here in Arundequoit. From 2014 to 2016, 69 Monroe County tobacco retailers violated the New York State Public Health Law 13F, which is selling tobacco products to a minor. And students say they access the product easily from teens who are 18. By raising the T21, we will significantly target middle and high school students' accessibility, initiation, or experimentation, and social acceptability to these products. Nearly everyone who buys cigarettes for minors in the U.S. is under 21 years of age. Raising the sale age prevents high school students from buying tobacco and nicotine products for their peers and younger students. Overall, our community values taking initiative to promote health and wellness among our youth, protecting youth from addiction, developmental impairments, serious disease, premature death is of utmost importance. I urge you, as the board for the town of Arundequoit, to support the implementation in Monroe County of T21 legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nacy, and thanks for all your work on our Drug-Free Arundequoit Coalition. That's the extent of the folks who signed up for public input. Anyone who did not sign up wishes to address the board on any topic is free to do so. I see none, so with that, we will move on to the financial report. Madam Comptroller.
Thank you. The 2018 financial results as of May 31st. 41.7% of the year has elapsed, and the town's total expenses are slightly higher than budget at 43.5%, a sum of $15,022,000. Encumbrances are $2,211,000, and actual expenses total $12,811,000. Please note that the actual expenses alone equate only to 37.1% of budget. Regarding encumbrances, they are typically high at this time of year as departments continue to commit to services, supplies, and commodities that will be needed during the year. The general fund expenses are only slightly above budget at 43.1%, or $8,925,000. Actual expenditures are 38% of budget, $7,867,000. The other 5.1% is due to $1,058,000 of encumbrances. Jointly, the expenses in the highway funds are $2,528,000, 45.6% of budget, above the 41.7% of the year that has elapsed. The costs result from substantial expenses and encumbrances for gas, fuel, salt, installment debt, and equipment parts as anticipated. Expenditures in the library fund are above budget at $1,077,000, 46.6% of budget. The current overrun is attributed to debt service. The annual bond anticipation note principal and interest payments of $346,000 for the consolidated library were made in the prior month. The current unfavorable impact of debt service will level off by year end. The sewer fund expenses of $1,741,000 are 42.6% of budget. The fund is no longer below budget as a bond payment was made and equipment lease encumbrances were established as planned. Expenses in stormwater drainage are approximately 27.8% of budget, a total of $219,000. The general fund has received a revenue of $13,434,000, 66.1% of budget. At the end of May, 100% of real estate tax, or $10.8 million, had been collected. 88% of payment in lieu of tax revenue is in. Another $25,000 is due in October, and we'll put that line item at 2.6% over budget. During May, the town received a sales tax payment that included 2 months of 2018 revenue in the amount of $638,000. Included in other sources of revenue are Metley Center settlement proceeds of $450,000, $218,000 of settlement costs associated with Comida and the Target and Holiday Inn properties. Also, the town is experiencing some favorability from increased building permit fees associated primarily with Providence Housing. Other major revenue sources such as mortgage tax, franchise cable fees, and per capita state aid were not due when the books closed at the end of May. Regarding the entire town, $25.2 million, or 73.9% of revenue and the appropriated fund balance has been recorded to date. Approximately $16.8 million of that amount is real estate tax, and that's 100% of that budget. At month end, the library had recorded revenue of $2,205,000, 95.5% of budget. 78.1%, or $4,272,000 of revenue has been verified by the highway. 100% of the sewer fund, or $4,068,000 is in. Stormwater drainage has also received 100% of its budgeted revenue, $763,000. This concludes my financial report for the month of May 2018.
Thank you, Ms. Seeley. Any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
As always, much appreciated. Motion to accept?
Moved.
And second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Report is accepted. We'll move on to minutes. Workshop. Madam Clerk?
May 8th, 2018, the workshop meeting.
Motion to approve?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
One abstention?
One abstention, 3 yeses. Minutes are approved.
May 15th, 2018, the regular town board meeting.
Motion, please.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
One abstention?
Minutes are approved with one abstention from Councilwoman Hushla Ray. With that, I believe, Madam Clerk, we can move on to our first public hearing of the night.
Public hearing 1 pertaining to amending the Arundequoit Community Development Block Grant Program for prior years.
Motion, please.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of opening the hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing is open. Ms. Seeley, explanation, please.
Yes. In the 2017-2018 street resurfacing program, there was $306,600 for street resurfacing, and all of the streets that were designated in that plan have been scheduled for resurfacing. After $50,000 remain unspent in that plan as a result of productivities in the pricing that was received. So this public hearing is requesting that 2 additional streets are assigned for the $20,000 of unspent funding. And those streets are Dahlia Lane, west side of the street, Baker Avenue, Vinyl to Goodman.
Thank you, Annie. Just a few notes on this. In effect, we have a positive balance from last year's CDBG proceeds, federal money that is awarded to us for infrastructure, for programs for senior citizens, for lower income neighborhoods. The balance of that funds we are going to use to pave 2 roads that are in CDBG zones. Those are certain parts of town that are designated by the federal government that are eligible for CDBG funding. The purpose of this hearing is anytime we amend our action plan, we're required to have a public hearing. So in order to amend that and reappropriate those funds, we are required to have a public hearing. With that, if anyone wishes to address the board, you may come up. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing. In a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing is closed. Madam Clerk, the resolution, please.
In the matter of a public hearing pertaining to amending the Community Development Block Grant Program for prior years.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Again, this would amend our 2017-2018 CDBG action plan to allow us to utilize a positive balance to pave 2 roads in the town of Arundequoit. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Public hearing number 2, pertaining to the adoption of a local law amending Article 2 and Article 6 of Chapter 222 of the Code of the Town of Arundequoit relating to speed limits.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
All those in favor of opening the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is open. A brief explanation, then I invite anyone who wants to speak on the hearing to come up to do so. In our April meeting, we amended the town code as it relates to speed limits, which I mentioned in my supervisor's remarks. This is really a technical cleanup law. In particular, in amending the town law, we failed to reference both North Winton and Empire Boulevards, which will remain the same. In not referencing them, they would have fallen down to 30 miles per hour, which Empire Boulevard, that might have been problematic. So it's tightening that up. Also, perhaps more importantly, it's tightening up the meets and bounds of our school speed zones to make sure they're very precise. So largely, this is a cleanup, what we call cleanup. I'm inclined to pass tonight because we have a July 1st effective date of the law that was passed, so this would conform to the local law that was passed back in April. With that, I invite anyone who wishes to address the board on this law to come forward. Seeing none, I'll take a motion to close public hearing.
Moved.
In a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. Madam Clerk will now move on to 2A resolution.
Pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, in the matter of adopting a local law amending Article 2 and Article 6 of Chapter 222 of the Code of the Town of Arundequoit relating to speed limits.
A motion. And a second.
Second.
Ms. Ivers, explanation, please.
Excuse me, and looking at the seeker analysis associated with this action, it's an unlisted action under seeker. Essentially, the text amendments don't represent any change to physical conditions or environmental conditions as well. For that reason, we're recommending a negative declaration.
Thank you, Ms. Ivers, and board members have the seeker short environmental assessment form. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Adopting a local law amending Article 2 and Article 6 of Chapter 222 of the Code of the Town of Arundequoit relating to speed limits.
Motion. Moved. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. This would adopt the technical amendments to the local law that was passed in April to conform with the July 1st implementation date. I'll also note, and I failed to mention this in my remarks, but Chief Tantillo has been spearheading a working group with residents to help ensure awareness and compliance with these new changes. We encourage people to go on the town's website. We're also going to be handing out, I believe, stickers at the 4th of July festivities. Is that correct, Chief? So above all, we want people to be aware that this is occurring, and you'll start to see it. But certainly, if there's questions, we want to make sure people are informed and have access to information. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 3, authorizing the town board to make a determination pursuant to Article 3 of Chapter 104, vacant and unsafe buildings regarding 62 Seaview Avenue, Rochester, New York.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
I'll ask Ms. Ivers for a brief explanation, and then Mr. Nelevenko for a more detailed explanation about the particular property. Ms. Ivers?
The town board is being asked to consider information and reporting from Deputy Fire Marshal Nelly Vaco, which I apologize for the pronunciation. The process is being undertaken because of the unsafe condition of the property. In following the letter of the law, which is outlined in our town code and also supported in New York State town law, this is the first step in identifying a property as a fitting under unsafe structure, and in this case, being recommended for demolition and removal. This is the first step. This will trigger the start of a 30-day window of time in which the owner of the property will be able to come back to the town. There will be a hearing set as part of this effort, and then subsequent steps by the town board will be taken as the process proceeds.
Thank you. And Deputy Fire Marshal George Nelevenko, just give us an overview of what happened to the property and the current state that it's in and why you have made this recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. On March 22nd of this year, the single-family residence located at 62 Seaview Avenue was severely damaged as a result of a major fire. I believe everybody has a summary report which includes photographs which illustrate the extent of the damage, which includes the roof which was weakened and collapsed. The support structure has been damaged to the point that the structure is no longer stable. And portions of flooring and stairs have burned through. The damage to the structure is so severe that we have deemed it necessary to be demolished, as it is posing a risk of personal safety, and it impacts the neighbors' quality of life due to the debris in the yard as a result of the fire.
And have we tried to contact the homeowner as to with regards to their intent to repair?
Yes, we have. We've reached out to the homeowner and with direction to come back to the town with a plan of action. And to date, we have received nothing formally on what the plans may be.
So your recommendation is the structure's unsafe and should be demolished?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And I always appreciate the thorough documentation here, which I know is required, but always is helpful to paint a detailed picture of the condition of the property. And with that, any questions or comments? This is the first step of the process, which we take out of necessity, because when we receive a report from our fire marshal that a structure is unsafe and likely needs to be demolished, I always think it's in the best interest of public safety and health to go through that process. So this is the first step of the process, as Ms. Ivers outlined. With that, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Item number 4, appointing a Conservation Board chairperson.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This would appoint Krista Greer, who's been a member of our Conservation Board since 2016. She's indicated interest in the position, and we feel that she would do a wonderful job. She's been a great addition since then, and brings new ideas, and very excited about this. So, and Krista's here with us tonight.
Thanks, and I'll just note, you know, it's a citizen board, and we don't want to use the word laypersons, but if there's one board where it's not really laypersons, because the background of the board members on the conservation board is always so, I think, germane to the focus of the board. And I know Ms. Greer's background working for Bergman has to do with stormwater and stream restoration, so certainly she has a body of knowledge that's certainly relevant and welcome for this board. And I'm glad we got to shine light on a project that you helped spearhead and participated in through that capacity. So I thank you for your participation and leadership on the board, and we want you to know we don't take it for granted up here, and it's very, very much appreciated. Any questions or comments? Any concerns with this resolution?
One small comment, no concerns. I think this might be, I'm not a historian, but this might be the first woman to chair the Conservation Board, Supervisor Seeley.
I think that's right.
Which I was shocked because I thought you had chaired it on several different times. But, so
Congratulations.
congratulations on that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Ms. Greer is appointed. Would you please stand and be recognized? Thank you.
Item number 5, filling a Conservation Board vacancy.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second? Thank you. This would appoint Gary Adams to the Conservation Board. I will note that Mr. Adams is also a member of the Town Audit Review Committee. However, council has determined there is no conflict or intersection of those duties. So we thank Mr. Adams for his interest in serving the town in a variety of capacities, and I certainly support this resolution. I will note, I believe we have one more vacancy for the Conservation Board, so if you're watching at home and are interested, we always welcome participation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Mr. Adams is not here, but we thank him for his service.
Item number 6, accepting gifts for Invigorate Arundequoit.
Motion
Moved.
and a second.
Second.
Mr. Sinton, a broad overview of the resolution, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. On May 5th, we held a very successful Invigorate Arundequoit event. It would not have been possible without the support of many individuals and organizations within the community that donated food or beverages and supplies or funds for food and beverages and supplies. I read the list at the board workshop. They're also listed in the resolution as well.
Yeah, and we thank them all. If we read them all, we'd be here till 8:30, but certainly all the officials, businesses, residents that donated supplies, time, resources to put this on, we appreciate it. And above all, thank you to the residents, and young and old, who helped us out. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. I'll now ask Mr. Perticone for the purposes of introduction.
Yes, I hereby introduce the following draft local law to amend Chapter 164 of the Arundequoit Town Code relating to the town properties.
Thank you, and we have that introduction. Board members have that draft law that Mr. Perticone just put on the table. Madam Clerk, would you please read resolution number 7?
Calling for a public hearing pertaining to the amendment of Article 6 of Chapter 164 of the Code of the Town of Arundequoit relating to town property.
Motion. And a second.
Second.
Thanks. I'm going to give an explanation, then I'll let Mr. Kiley or Chief Tantillo fill in any gaps or add to my explanation. We, over the past several months, have discussed making certain amendments to local laws that relates to our town properties. This started largely with a discussion about the use of tobacco and nicotine products on our town properties. And with general support from the board, we decided to venture forward with exploring changes which would make our town properties largely smoke and nicotine-free, both smokeless and smoked tobacco, as well as e-cigarettes and vape and all the other devices that you can have nicotine in your system now. I'll note that Monroe County parks and or a large amount of the town parks have similar ordinances. But certainly, this isn't one where we're just trying to catch up with the times. I think there's a public health need, and our parks and public places are becoming more visited, and we're having more recreational facilities. So I advance this tonight with the intent of ensuring that secondhand smoke and we aren't doing things to encourage the use of tobacco, nicotine products, especially areas where a large number of children are. In addition to that, we looked at other elements of our town code that regulate our town property. In particular, I will note this regulates, it says that dogs and cats are permitted, except they have to be on the control of a leash. It tightens up the language there. It does not, it clarifies so that no person can ride a snow vehicle, ATV, motorbike on the town law or town property. And also of note, our town code currently permits the possession of a firearm on our town properties and town parks. It does not permit the discharge, but it permits the possession. That is one provision that we are an outlier, I would say, as far as municipalities go. The county and most towns do not allow firearms on town properties. So we are, in the interest of public safety really, but also just to catch up with the times, update our code in that regard. And then finally, this kind of came as a, not a coincidence, but we, as we've taken over the Irondequoit Bay Marine Park, certainly we have an interest in controlling parking, particularly near the boat launch, which is intended to house the trailers that launch the boats. That's what that parking lot is there for. And in the interest of doing that, we are going to add a provision to our town code that requires that parking in violation of any sign posted by the town of Irondequoit is a violation. And I will note, in the interim period, our police department, chief, correct me if I'm wrong, still has a state parks law to allow them to write tickets on state property. The state owns that property, we manage it, but we can still write tickets. It's just not pursuant to our town code. Is that correct, chief?
That's correct.
Thank you. So this would introduce this local ordinance, call a public hearing for next month. It has a long overview, but it's what we call an omnibus piece of legislation. So any questions or comments just on its introduction? And the public hearing again will be next month. All those in favor of calling the public hearing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 8, authorizing the supervisor to accept grant funding from New York State and enter into a contract with NYSERDA for the Public Safety Building and the Department of Public Works facility.
Motion. Moved. And a second? Second. Thank you. Mr. Kiley, explanation please, or? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The resolution before the town board this evening is to accept $250,000 worth of grant funding from the New York State Energy Research Development Authority, or NYSERDA. These funds would be used to install 2 roof-mounted solar panel arrays, one on the public safety building, generating 53.1 kilowatts per year and covering roughly 3,400 square feet of the roof, and a second solar panel array at the future highway department located off the 590-104 interchange, producing 56.4 kilowatts of power per year and covering roughly 3,600 square feet of that roof.
Thanks, Bob. And just to give some context for the next 2 resolutions, we are receiving, now in receipt, and accepting a grant from state of New York via NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research Development Authority. This grant was made possible through our being accepted into the Clean Energy Communities Program. We were one of the first towns in our region to be accepted into that program, largely because we implemented 4 action items over the past 18 months roughly. So we were very quick out of the gates. Doing so allowed us to be eligible for this $250,000 at a nominal cost to the town. I think ultimately the cost for the town was $1,500, and I would argue it's well spent because we now have 2 electric vehicle charging stations. So with really no town resources, it's all taxpayer resources, but state resources, we are going to receive this grant and install at no charge to the tax levy, or maybe a very slight I think it's like $12 charge. How much is it, Bob?
$57.
$57. So we couldn't. It's $250,000 and $57. So, but I kid. But having this installation will significantly lower our energy cost at both those buildings. So, this isn't just good for the construction. This is something that's good from a sustainability point of view, but also if we're looking at town budgeting, we can realize some significant savings at our operating budget. So, I want to thank Ms. Kelly, Bob, Ms. Ivers for their work on this, and certainly the board's support as we move through this. This is kind of the final point, and we'll see the panels go up on the public safety building, and then next year up on the DBW facility. So very happy to advance this. Questions or comments? If you are in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Item number 9, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a contract for solar panel purchase and installation related to the public safety building and the Department of Public Works facility.
Motion. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Kylie, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The town put out a request for proposal for the aforementioned solar panel array systems for the public safety building and the new Department of Public Works. That RFP, we did receive one proposal from Green Spark Solar. We descoped that vendor, sitting down. The committee consisted of myself, the supervisor, the deputy supervisor, and Director Kelly. We agreed unanimously that Green Spark Solar was able to execute the project within the timeframes and within the budget. We will see solar panels being installed this fall at the Public Safety Building, and we will see solar panels being installed next spring, summer at the new Department of Public Works.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk.
Item number 10, declaring certain equipment as surplus property.
Motion.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Kylie, explanation, please.
This resolution declares 2 pieces of equipment surplus to be surplused on the next online auction.
Thank you. And as always, Mr. Perticone is at the last right of refusal and does not want these items. As such, we are putting them out to auction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 11, accepting gifts in support of the Neighborhood Enhancement Program.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Romeo. I will explain our neighborhood enhancement program, which we love making available every year. One particular grant from the HIP organization involved a display outside of the former Evans Library on Cooper Road. We made a request, given it was a school district utilizing it in the plan, to seek a cost share with the school district. They have agreed to have a 50-50 cost share, and as such, we are accepting this donation in the amount of $775 to install, and what I think will be a very nice enhancement as we continue to beautify and enhance that Titus Cooper neighborhood of town. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Item number 12, authorizing the supervisor to enter into a new contract with a vendor for the town's July 4th, 2018 celebration.
Motion. And a second.
Second.
Mr. Sinton, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. At last month's meeting, you entered into various contracts with parade vendors, entertainment vendors, and craft vendors for the 4th of July Festival. This adds one more on Addendum B. It's the Young Explosives, and they're the fireworks company.
Very nice. It was a good investment we're happy to make. Thank you, Mr. Sinton. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 13, authorizing the supervisor to enter into various contracts with vendors for the town's 2018 Oktoberfest celebration.
Motion. And a second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hushler-Ray. Mr. Sinton, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As I just stated, this allows you to enter into various contracts with food vendors, entertainment vendors, and commercial vendors associated with the upcoming Oktoberfest.
The contracts were available for review at workshop.
Correct, they were.
Thank you, Mr. Sinton. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk?
Item number 14, appointing a current employee to the newly classified title of Real Property Aide.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second.
Second.
Mr. Vanette? explanation, please?
Thank you, sir. The town assessor approached me regarding the duties of Clerk 3 Jillian Rumiano. After reviewing her duties, I determined she was performing the work of real property aid. We brought this to the Civil Service Commission. They agreed and classified the position as such.
Thank you.
This resolution will actually appoint Jillian provisionally to that title.
Thank you. Ms. Maneo?
I would just like to say that Jillian is working side by side with me for years now in the assessor's office and has been instrumental in a lot of the projects that I have been implementing, and especially instrumental in the 2018 revale. I'm happy to bring her name forward and advocate for her to be given the position that represents her duties. Thank you for taking this into consideration.
Thank you, Enza. I'll just say, Jillian has been here, I think, my entire tenure as supervisor, but certainly the past 2 years there's been a lot going on with our assessor's office as it relates not just to the reassessment, that's the big project, but other not projects, but you know, the assessor is trying to be more compliant with state law and being more engaging with residents. So in that effort to be I think more accessible and receptive and communicate better with residents under Enza's lead, Jillian and the rest of the office has done a great job, and Jillian certainly has been an integral part of that. So very happy to advance this and support this. Any questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Jillian, you're now required to stand up and accept our congratulations. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Item number 15, amending the Personnel Policy Handbook.
Motion. Second? Second. Thank you. Mr. Vanette, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. The resolution before you amends the town's personnel handbook. The purpose of this is to just clarify some language, to bring some policies into compliance, and also to add a social media policy and a whistleblower protection act.
Thank you. And any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 16, authorizing the placement of traffic control devices at Rosemont Drive and Wimbledon Road.
Motion?
Moved.
And a second? Second. Chief, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. After assessing this particular intersection and looking for clarity to avoid any confusion for motorists, because this three-way intersection, if you will, had no traffic control devices, so the placement of these stop signs will clearly indicate what the responsibility of the motorists are, and the neighbors certainly support this action.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Chief? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 17, declaring one video recorder surplus property and authorizing its auction.
Motion? Moved. And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Chief, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This video recorder has really reached its useful life expectancy within our organization. We're requesting permission to declare it surplus and auction it off.
Thanks, Chief. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Madam Clerk.
Item number 18, authorizing the attendance to New York State Juvenile Officers Association Annual Training Conference.
Motion?
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Chief, explanation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is permission for Sergeant Jessica Franco to attend the Juvenile Officers Training Conference, which is held in Binghamton, New York this year. The cost of the training will be is within the confines of the police department training budget, and this is certainly a priority this year based upon the new raise the age legislation that New York State has adopted for dealing with juvenile offenders.
Thank you, Chief. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 19, authorizing the purchase of one 2018 Ford Police Interceptor Utility All-Wheel Drive Vehicle and the associated budget transfers.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is as a result of a total loss recovery that the police department experienced. One of our officers was involved in a motor vehicle accident, however, that officer was not at fault. As a result, the insurance recoveries were in the revenue line, and with a budget transfer within our police budget, we were able to cover the cost of a new vehicle that was put out to bid, the most responsible bidder being Genesee Valley Ford in Avon, New York.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted. Mr. Perticone, for the purposes of an introduction.
Yes, I offer the following legislation adopting the creating of a community choice aggregation program in the town of Arundequoit.
Thank you. Board members have the referenced draft legislation on their desk in their packets. Madam Clerk, resolution number 20, please.
Calling for a public hearing on a proposed local law to add a new chapter establishing a community choice aggregation program in the town of Arundequoit.
Motion.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. The introduction of this law tonight, it's, I think, the start of a process, but also the end of a process by which we've explored this new concept of community choice aggregation, also known as CCA. Heard from both residents in support of it, of us looking at it, and also hearing a presentation from the Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council. CCA, or Community Choice Aggregation, is not a new concept, but it is a new concept in New York, or newer concept. It was first implemented through a pilot program in Westchester County, and has actually been very successful, not only in lowering utility rates, but also increasing the utilization of green renewable energy. In its basic form, CCA is a municipal energy procurement model that replaces the utility as a default supplier of electricity for virtually all the homes and small businesses within a town. It puts choosing an energy supplier in local hands, and it allows us to pool demand. So in doing so, communities like Arundequoit, and perhaps working with other communities, can establish the clout necessary to lower rates with private suppliers. It also has the benefit of allowing, through that leverage, insisting on the utilization or mandating the utilization of clean energy. In Westchester County, most of the municipalities opting into the program, which did lower utility rates compared to the traditional utility rates, had a 100% renewable product. So it has that added benefit of allowing us to spearhead and facilitate the further development and utilization of renewable energy. This law is really the first step of a process. We are calling a public hearing tonight, which we will hold next month, and we will not adopt next month. But this law is enabling legislation. It's based on model legislation provided by the state. It would allow us, if we were to pass it, to select an administrator, or procure, an administrator through an open process, who then, upon their selection, would be able to negotiate on behalf of the town or a collection of towns, a collaborative if we so choose, with energy suppliers. We could insist on any set of terms or criteria or charge them by doing so. Given its success in Westchester County, and I think our general interest, I think it is incumbent on us to explore this. I think it's incumbent on us to educate our residents on this, but ultimately I think it's an opportunity that we should not pass up, at least assessing whether or not we want to move forward. I'll note that some other towns in the county are exploring this. Brighton has already passed this enabling legislation. I know the town of Pittsford is interested, as is the city of Rochester. So this is the first step of that process in calling the public hearing. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is adopted. I now call on Ms. Romeo for the purposes of an introduction.
Thank you, Supervisor. I hereby introduce the following draft local law to amend Chapter 93 of the Code of the Town of Arundequoit relating to the deer management program.
Thank you. That legislation is in your packets, and for your review, this would call a public hearing. I'm going to call Madam Clerk for resolution number 21. That I'll explain.
Calling for a public hearing on a proposed local law to amend Chapter 93 of the Code of the Town of Arundequoit relating to the bow hunt program.
Thank you. Motion? Moved. And a second?
Second.
All right, brief explanation. As we revised our town code relating to the our bow hunt program, which implements our deer management program, one provision that we had in that law was a requirement that the town assess the population of the deer through a process approved by the Deer Management Program Board. Subsequent conversations with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, on whose behalf we implement this program. They have charged us with implementing this program. They have recommended that from an assessment point of view, monitoring the deer population is not the best approach, and has recommended some alternative approaches, including but not limited to tracking motor vehicle accidents that are deer-related, as well as some mechanisms or models that are being used to assess plant life and the health of trees and how it correlates to the deer population. So I think the recommendation is to move forward with those measures in place of what was existing in town law, which was an assessment tool. So this would call a public hearing for the proposed amendment to town code. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. And I'll note board members have a letter from DEC which outlines their recommendation in their packets as well.
Item number 22, authorizing a contract for a real estate broker for the sale of 2180 East Ridge Road.
Motion? And a second?
Second?
Thank you. A little history lesson. In constructing our new consolidated town library, the property at 2180 Ridge Road was declared surplus, and in seeking to sell that piece of property, in 2015, the town engaged with a real estate broker to do so. We did not sell it during that period of time. In our efforts to continue to sell it as we look towards 2017, shortly before 2017 hit, we had a fire at our highway garage, thus no longer being able to declare the property surplus because we needed it to house our temporary highway garage. With that, we are now looking at the end in sight and wish to continue to market that property, hoping to sell it at some point the second half of next year. This would procure the services of CBRE, who was the town's selected broker. In the past, we did have an RFP committee that met. CBRE was the only firm responding to the RFP committee. We did have a meeting of the RFP committee, and our recommendation is to continue with CBRE. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution's adopted.
Item number 23, approving the special event license for I-Square Fall Festival.
Motion? Second?
Second.
Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Item number 24, approving the special event license for I-Square Tree Trimming Festival.
Motion?
Moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted. This concludes our agenda for board action. We now are going to move to our presentation from our consultant, Bonadio, for the town audit. I think we're going to do a reversal, and board members are going to pivot and face Mr. Randy Shepard from the Bonadio group. So we'll have a brief intermission. Hey, Randy, how are you? Good, how are you? Good, buddy.
How you doing, buddy?
Andy, the floor is yours.
Wow. I must have done a horrible job last year because I went from the front of the agenda all the way to the back. So I'm not sure what's happening here. Anyway, thank you for having me. I know last week Megan was here and presented to the board in the session for that. So we're just going to kind of go through over high level information. This PowerPoint is in your packet, but it's all going to be up here on the board. And just kind of summarizing, I mean, obviously you hire us to make sure that your statements basically are fairly presented, so that when you're presenting that to your bonding agencies, grantors, funders, things like that, that they can rely on the numbers that you provided to them and that are in those financial statements. So part of our process is we look at internal control, make sure that the procedures are in place to ensure that the statements are fairly presented. If we had any significant matters to report to you relative to control, we would. We do not have any matters. The big thing is what we do doesn't relieve you of your responsibility. It helps you, mitigate that responsibility, discharge that responsibility. And I think the main thing, second bullet from the bottom, is that our opinions are what are called unmodified. That's a clean audit opinion. That's the highest level of assurance we can give. That's what you're looking for. So that's very important for you. In terms of, and sorry about the spacing, sometimes that happens when you change between different PowerPoint versions. But this represents your governmental activities. So this essentially is putting the town on an equal playing field as any commercial or nonprofit business, et cetera, if we were to align you up that way. And it's called your governmental net position. So essentially your net worth, if there was such a thing in the town, is $24.5 million. 30 million of it's invested in capital assets. So all your infrastructure, your buildings, your vehicles, all that type of thing. You've got about 55 million that is restricted, so that's your reserves. And then you've got a negative 6.3 million representing the unrestricted or the balance of your net position. And the main reason that is in that format in a negative is you've got a couple significant liabilities related to your net pension liability, which relates to the actuarially calculated underfunding of the state's retirement system. Totally outside of your control, but you have to pick up your component of that, and every government in New York picks up their piece. And that piece is like 5.9 million. The other big reason for that is you've got almost a $14 million liability related to other post-employment benefit obligations. So retirees that have left employment, you've committed to them certain retiree benefits, healthcare primarily, and the cost of that into the future, actuarially based, is what that represents. Now there will be changes to that standard going forward. There'll be some additional liabilities booked there in 2018 with a new accounting standard. But we'll address that, when that comes. Your governmental funds. So this is really what you're most familiar with and what you focus on primarily throughout the year. Is in a negative position right now, and this is all governmental funds combined. And the primary reason that is negative is your capital fund has bans in there. You got 12.7 million of bans. That's a short-term obligation. Primarily the library is the biggest piece of that's going to go to bond next year, which will generate proceeds and will turn that negative into a positive number. So nothing to worry about. That's just part of the way that governments finance buildings and construction. And a little small, but here's a 3-year history of the governmental funds. And you can see down in that liabilities and fund balance section, that last line is the bond anticipation notes. You can see they've been steadily decreasing as you've been making payments in accordance with the obligations. And you can see there where your fund balance is, as I talked about, the negative 392. But pretty much what you're used to, you're consistent with what you've been seeing. The two big items, accounts receivable and state and federal receivables, you can see are up from the year before, 2 million compared to just under $1 million, and the state and federal aid of 3 million, primarily related to insurance proceeds and collections from some of the grants related to the fire. So those are monies that came in 18, but at 12/31 they were still a receivable for you. Looking at the revenues and expenditures for the town, as we talked about, the other revenue line of 9.4 compared to 4.5, that is all really insurance proceed monies coming in for all the expenditures that you had throughout the year. And then in the other financing sources, you had 2.7 million for some debt issuances, a new bond of 1.3, and then as well as 1.5 million of capital leases were your primary sources there. And just a few graphs to kind of show things, kind of a graphical depiction. this is just showing your general fund revenues, budget versus actual. The blue column representing your budget, so you can see, each of the past 3 years, your actuals have been above budget, which is good. And at the same time, when you look at expenditures, budget versus actual, blue line representing budget, and orange line is actual. You've either been at budget or below on the expenditure side. So again, another, the right place to be, the right side of that equation to be on.
Randy, that spike in both revenues and expenditures from 2017 can largely be attributed to the fire.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, both expenditure and revenue side.
Thank
Yep.
you.
And then looking just actual to actual for both revenues and expenditures. Again, the blue line representing revenues, and so whenever you're able to have revenues in excess of expenditures, allows you to generate positive changes to fund balance, which is what you're hoping to do. And again, there's not big swings there. So what that means is that from a budgetary perspective, you're doing a good job, not overtaxing, not overspending. You're right in line there. So I think that's a positive message to represent. And then if you look at just general fund balance itself at the end of the year, you did have fund balance in the general fund increase for the year primarily because of, I'm trying to remember where that went, just revenues outpacing expenses in the general fund itself for the year. And then we just look quickly at the highway fund. You did have an increase in fund balance of about $312,000. Again, the main increases in revenue being related to the insurance proceeds, and on the expenditure side, the expenditures related to replacing all that equipment, as well as some scheduled debt payments. And then lastly, the sewer fund, we look at that. Overall fund balance decreased about 22%, or just under $500,000 there. You did have some insurance proceeds in the sewer fund, it looks like, offset by $22,000 worth of decreases in tax. Expenditure side, you had some additional sewer maintenance cost and costs related to the fire, et cetera. So that's kind of where you stand there. But nothing that you guys aren't fully aware of. We're sitting here at the end of June, so I know this somewhat old news in some respect, but the positive side is they're audited numbers now, and you can be confident that the numbers are fairly presented.
And, we don't get too much into it on this presentation, but you did mention there is some new GASB rules coming down the pipeline. Just a brief overview of what we might expect next year and subsequent years.
Yeah, the biggest one that'll impact you next year is GASB 75, and that's an additional standard related to other post-employment benefit obligations. Without making you into accountants, way back when they first initiated the standard, and there was a recognition that there was already employees who had already retired, and there was cost associated with those employees. They said, we're not going to make you take the big hit right now. We're going to allow you to amortize all those old retiree costs over 30 years. Now this new standard says you can no longer amortize those over 30 years. You have to pick them all up now. So the big impact is you're going to take the hit of all that liability on your books. It never doesn't change your funding. So how you're going to pay for those benefits is the same way. As they come due, you pay them. But there's going to be recognition of that liability, so you'll be another swing there. The other big one is probably going to be leases, which is going to be 2020. That'll change how you recognize leases. Now, we haven't really fully assessed the impact it's going to have on the town, but essentially, if you have a long-term lease obligation, you won't just pick up the liability, you'll pick up the asset as well. So whatever the fair value of the asset that you're using, because essentially with a long-term lease, you have the right to use an asset, you intentionally own it in a way, you're going to pick up the asset and the liability. So on a net basis, it won't change your financials, it just changes the look of them and how we recognize them. Those are probably the biggest ones that are probably coming down that I can think of off the top of my head.
Thank you. Any other questions? And again, we did have this presentation and a probably a little bit longer presentation at our workshop. And always thank you to your staff as well as Annie and her staff for what is probably a multi-month process or several weeks. I know we're on an annual basis we're working with you to really do a deep dive into our accounts, so we thank you for that.
No, my pleasure. And I should have said that at the outset. I do thank Annie and Diana and everyone in the finance office that gets us prepared, because they really have a lot to put together in a short period of time, and we get out here and dive through it. So, and and they are patient with our questions.
And thank you for waiting. I eyeballed our agenda, and it was a short agenda, so I figured it could have been worse if it was a 4-hour-long meeting and you were at the tail end. The last consultant that gave a presentation right there was at 11 o'clock at night, so
Oh, wow.
be thankful, yeah.
That's way past my bedtime. I would have been sleeping.
All right, thank you,
All right,
Randy.
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. With that, we can convene back to the dais just to adjourn. Thank you.
That's my job.
Who wants to turn the projector off? Thank you. Thanks, Nate. Okay, that concludes our agenda for the June 19th regular town board meeting. I will note our next workshop meeting is July 10th, 2018, here in the Broderick Meeting Room at 4 p.m. Next regular town board meeting is Tuesday, July 17th, 2018, 7 p.m. here at the Broderick Meeting Room. On behalf of the board members, I would like to wish everyone a happy Independence Day holiday. We look forward to seeing you up at Town Hall for our festivities, and I will take a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation of the Arundecoit Town Board on ICAT 12, Arundecoit's government access channel.